Welcome to the podcast of Philippe, where we like to take these deep dives, into all sorts of fascinating topics. And today we're looking at AI, but not just AI in general. We're kind of zeroing in on one very specific aspect and maybe a surprising weakness, which is historical accuracy. There's been a ton of hype around AI, especially these large language models like, GPT-4 and Gemini. You hear about them all the time. They just seem capable of doing almost anything. But a recent study has shown that even these super advanced AI models, they kind of fumble when it comes to history.
Yeah, it's interesting how this study actually went about testing the AI's historical knowledge. They use something called Hist-LLM. It's a system that evaluates the responses from AI models. And they're not just looking for general historical facts or trivia. They're comparing these AI responses to a massive database called the Seychat Global History Databank.
Seychat Global History Databank. That's a pretty cool name. I mean, it's named after the Egyptian goddess of wisdom. So they're really putting these AI models through a pretty rigorous history exam here and using this incredibly comprehensive database as a benchmark.
So what kind of results are we talking about? Did the AIs pass with flying colors?
Well, not exactly. Even the best performing model, which was GPT-4 Turbo, it only scored a 46% accuracy rate.
Wow, 46%. That's barely a passing grade. So maybe AI isn't quite ready to be a history professor. But I'm curious, what kind of history questions were they asking these AI models?
All sorts, really. They cover different historical periods, different civilizations. And one of the biggest blunders I saw, GPT-4 was asked about scale armor in ancient Egypt. And it confidently stated that this type of armor was used during a specific period. But it turns out it was off by about 1,500 years.
1,500 years, that's a huge historical error. It's like confusing the Roman Empire with the Renaissance. It makes you wonder, AI is writing code, it's diagnosing medical conditions. Why is history such a stumbling block? Well, it comes down to how these AI models are trained. They learn by analyzing tons and tons of data. They identify patterns and use those patterns to generate responses. But history is inherently messy and complicated. There's so much nuance, there's interpretation involved, and a lot of it relies on primary sources, which can be really tough to analyze. AI thrives in areas where there are very clear facts and figures, but it struggles with the ambiguities and complexities that are so central to history.
It's like AI is trying to memorize a textbook without really understanding the story or the context
Hmm.
or the cause and effect. It can spit out facts, but it doesn't really get the deeper meaning or the big picture.
That's a really good way to put it. And that gets at one of the big challenges in developing AI that can truly understand history. It's not just about giving it more data, it's about teaching it to think critically, to evaluate sources, to consider different perspectives, and to really grasp how events are interconnected.
It's almost like we need to teach AI to become a historian, not just a fact checker. And that raises a really interesting question. Can AI ever really understand the complexities of history? Or are there inherent limitations to its ability to grasp the past?
Well, I think one area where AI could have a huge impact is in analyzing massive amounts of historical data. Like, think about all those documents, letters, diaries, government records. AI could potentially go through all that information and maybe uncover connections or patterns or trends that humans might have missed.
Yeah, it's almost like giving historians this superpowered research assistant that can work 24/7, just sifting through all those archives and databases. So it's not about replacing historians, but more like giving them new tools to explore the past.
Right, exactly. And another potential application is in visualization. AI could create interactive timelines or maps. You could even have 3D models that bring historical events to life. Like, imagine being able to explore ancient Rome or walk through the streets of medieval London through some sort of virtual reality experience powered by AI.
Oh, wow. That would be incredible. I mean, it could completely change the way we teach and learn about history, make it so much more engaging and accessible. And speaking of access, I'm curious about the potential for AI to help us uncover some of the less studied or marginalized histories. Could AI be a tool for shedding light on the stories that have been kind of overlooked or silenced?
Yeah, that's a really interesting possibility. Think about histories that maybe haven't been well documented, or where the existing sources are really fragmented. AI could potentially piece together those narratives, identify the missing voices, and then bring those stories to a much wider audience.
That could be really powerful, especially for communities whose histories haven't always been given the attention they deserve. It could help us build a more complete and inclusive understanding of the past. But of course, with any new technology, we have to think about the potential downsides. What are some of the ethical considerations that we need to be aware of when we're talking about AI and historical research?
Well, one of the big ones is bias. AI models are trained on data, And if that data is incomplete or skewed or reflects existing historical biases, then the AI could end up perpetuating those biases in its analysis and interpretations.
Right, because we've already talked about how AI struggles with the nuances of history. It's not hard to imagine how those biases could slip in, especially when dealing with sensitive or controversial historical events.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to remember that AI has limitations. We have to be critical of the information it provides and always double check it against other sources. It's also crucial to make sure that the data used to train these AI models is as diverse and representative as possible, so we're not just reinforcing existing power structures or dominant narratives.
So it's not just about building AI that's smart. It's about building AI that's ethical,
Mhm.
AI that's designed to be inclusive and fair and accountable. And at the end of the day, it's about recognizing that AI is a tool. It's a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool. And it's up to us humans to use that tool responsibly and make sure it's being used to really advance knowledge and understanding, and ultimately to create a more just and equitable world.
So it feels like we're at this kind of crossroads. With AI and history, we have this incredible potential. We could use AI to revolutionize research and analysis and visualization. But at the same time, we have to be really cautious about the limitations, the
Yeah.
potential for bias, and making sure that AI is being developed and used ethically.
Yeah, it is definitely a balancing act, and I think it highlights the need for more collaboration
Mhm.
between historians and computer scientists, ethicists,
Mm.
anyone who is really invested in understanding the past
Mm.
and also shaping the future of this technology. It's not just a technical challenge, it's a societal challenge.
Mhm.
And we have to really think critically about the role of AI, not just in historical research,
Mm.
but in all aspects of our lives, really.
It's interesting. This whole conversation about AI and history, it really underscores something fundamental about history itself. History isn't just a bunch of facts and dates. It's about interpretation. It's about perspective. And
Mhm.
ultimately, it's about making meaning. And those are all things that, at least for now, humans are uniquely equipped to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We can gather all the data in the world, but it's the human element, that ability to connect the dots, to see the bigger picture, to understand the human story.
Yeah.
That's what really brings history to life.
Exactly. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this as we get deeper into this world of AI. It's a reminder that human intelligence, human insight, and human empathy are more important than ever.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into AI and history, I think it's safe to say that we've probably ended up with more questions than answers. But that's kind of the exciting part, isn't it? It's about asking the right questions,
Mhm.
challenging assumptions, and being open to new possibilities.
Absolutely. It's been great diving deep with you. And for everyone listening out there, I hope this has sparked some curiosity and maybe even some healthy skepticism. Remember, the next time you come across some AI-generated history, take it with a grain of salt. Do your own research, look for different perspectives, and always think critically.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And if this deep dive has left you wanting more, be sure to check out our other episodes. We cover all sorts of fascinating topics. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.